my spirit's within me. How do I tap into that source? And I still don't know what it is. I can't fully define it, but I know there's something going on that's helping me shape my life and point me in the right directions. And I kind of look at it as if I take this appropriate amount of action that I understand to be right and turn over the rest, or seek that additional guidance, in my experience, it's always worked out.
This is Hard Knox Talks.
Gio, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Daniel. Great to be here.
Yeah. It's been a while coming, and in fact, you live just like across the street.
I know, crazy, right?
Yeah. So you're a former semi-pro hockey player from you played in Oklahoma. You're a father and co-parent, 2 daughters. You're a person in recovery. You're an operator in the North Dakota oil patch. You're dual citizen, born in PA, Saskatchewan. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we really jump into it today?
I don't think so. Just again, really appreciate you having me on. Been following your journey for quite some time and listened to several of the shows, and just think you're doing some tremendous work, and yeah, just an honor to be part of it.
Well, why don't you thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. Thanks for following along. And but today's about you, man. Why don't you tell us how this all got started for you?
Sure, man. I mean, I can start from the beginning. Not your prototypical addict or alcoholic story, in a sense of had a really good childhood. Not a lot of trauma there. Raised by, 2 great parents, loving parents. Was somewhat of an only child, had an older half brother, 10 years older. So he was, gone to university by the time I was 8 years old. We still have a great relationship today, but felt like an only child a lot of times. And you mentioned hockey off the top there. That's a huge part of my story, man. First 30 years of my life, sort of a late bloomer, was kind of just middle of the pack. Got into my teenage years and started recognizing that I had some talent and strong work ethic, and had the opportunity to move away from home and play junior hockey at 17 years old. I drank and smoked weed, but that was really the extent of any substances I was taking on, like a lot of kids in high school, right? And it was just fun. There was no consequences to those actions or choices. It did ramp up a little bit when I moved away from home, more freedom, right? I'm living with a billet family in Kindersley, Saskatchewan. Certain teammates are 19, 20 years old, legal drinking age. So there was more of it, right? It was more common, more accessible, and work hard, play hard, right? Or party hard, play hard was kind of the mentality. So drink all night and be able to show up the next morning for practice, sweat it out. And it was almost like ego inflating that you could get away with that consistently, right?
So was there conversations when you were younger about substance use? Like, you mentioned that you're smoking and drinking, and like that's just sort of what happens here in Saskatchewan oftentimes. Was there at any point in those younger years where you thought like, okay, this is wrong, I got to sneak around, or was this just something that was fully accepted?
Glad you brought that up. I knew about recovery to some extent. My grandfather was in the program, died 62 years sober, really influential man, circuit speaker. People still come up to my mom and thank her for her father saving their life, which is crazy. He left a tremendous legacy, and I try to follow that today. But that being said, I remember like his sobriety birthdays. He had 2 birthdays, and I thought that was so cool as a kid, right? Why does he get 2 birthdays? So I had like I knew, I kind of understood it, but not to the extent I do now, or once I started identifying as an alcoholic and addict. But that was really the only, again, there was no real addiction or alcoholism in my immediate family.
So there was no like duality going on in your head, like, oh, grandpa got his life messed up but he's good now, but like I can handle this. Like, was there no back and forth?
Not really. Not until late 20s, man, when it started to progress to a different level, right? So So yeah, again, it was just there was no consequences. So to me, it was like I said earlier, just kind of ego inflating in the sense of I can get away with this. It's fun, it was a void filler, center of attention, those kind of things.
Hmm.
Um,
Like, tell us a little bit about going down into Oklahoma. Tell us about some of the things that you saw down there, some of the things that brought you to that decision.
Sure. Yeah. So it was a 10-year 10-year journey. Once I moved down there at 21 years old, signed a minor league professional contract.
Hmm.
21 years old, arguably in the prime of my playing career, and it was awesome, man. Like those were some of my fondest hockey memories. But with that, there was elevated partying. I mean,
Hmm.
now you're with, not that the age is a huge factor, but just, older, more mature men, I guess, and just knew how to handle the partying on a higher level. So that was the first time I kind of got introduced to harder drugs, clubbing, that kind of thing after games. Uh, but again, I just remember like that, you know, that satisfactory feeling of like partying all night. And we would do it the night before games lots. Like we'd have a game the next day and just party all night. And that was, we called it guilty hockey, like being able
Hmm.
to show up with that guilty conscience and like sometimes honestly play better. Like I was uh, not gifted with that, but it was something I like took to heart and always tried to perform right,
Hmm.
despite what I had been doing, the night prior. So, my first 5 years pro, let's put it that way, there was still no consequences to my actions. Could still perform at a high level. Um, and that went on frequently. It wasn't just like the weekends. It was through the course of the week as well. Sometimes afternoons after practice, like just start drinking. Through those kind of first 5 years professionally, like I said, no consequences. It wasn't until sort of mid 20s. I remember feeling this void that even though I was doing those things I just mentioned, as far as, passionately loving a sport, making good money, making a career for myself, there was something missing, or at least it felt that way internally.
Were you aware of that at the time, or is this reflective?
It's reflective, man. I
Okay.
think like I think at the time it was just like, because again, the drugs and alcohol was so prevalent in my life, and even though there wasn't these consequences, it was still, pretty much an everyday thing.
Hmm.
And I think I was maybe recognizing that it just wasn't doing it anymore. uh so I started to chase other things, and I call them like the societal norms, as far as like, marriage, family, material items.
Hmm.
Uh, so I chased that, and, met someone, right away. We met, got pregnant, and married in a 6-month period.
Holy.
Yeah. And, I was 27 at the time, I believe. And, it ramped up really quick. Partying was definitely part of uh the early years with this person, and just very very toxic from the get-go, because I
Hmm.
think I wasn't like identifying as an addict or alcoholic at this point, but I remember consciously recognizing like this, it's pretty extreme what I'm doing here. Like, is this sustainable, right? And then when my daughter was born, um the partying didn't slow down any. And I remember reflecting on that in real time, like, but again, I think it was already starting to take hold of me, and just I just kind of let it go through my mind that it still wasn't an issue, right?
Hmm.
um I had some injuries, and that introduced me to, the pain medication opiate family of
Hmm.
substances.
Hmm.
I had never really messed with those before. I had had some previous injuries earlier in my career where, it was just like a prescription of maybe 10 pills, and just kind of take them as prescribed. I do remember that feeling though initially, like the first like Lortab, or, equivalent to like an Oxycontin here. That feeling, right? It was just like it not only took away that physical pain, but the emotional and
Filled the void.
psychological pain as well, man. Yeah. And it was very subtle, that because again, it was a 10 pack of pills, but uh it was very subtle. But I remember that feeling. Like it didn't evade me. I always remembered it until years later.
Hmm.
uh Had some significant injuries, a shoulder injury, and then a hip injury, uh where I was on stronger medication for a longer period of time.
Hmm.
And so that was, not taking it as prescribed. That was kind of the first, boundary breaker, if you will. And then consistently mixing it with alcohol, right? Because that was the concoction I loved, right? That perfect level of buzz. And it was to the point, because of the accessibility to that medication, just through like team doctors and eventually the streets. But initially, before my tolerance grew, I could get through, I could make a prescription last, right? And yeah, it was a daily thing, man. Like after practice, a couple beers with the guys, couple oxys, and just take that into the evening and see where it took us, or took me. A lot of times I was just already using by myself, right? Um, so so now I'm going through prescription bottles in, like, a month-long prescription in like a week to 10 days. So I'm buying off the streets now, right?
What did that look like? Like the first time you went to the street, it doesn't sound to me like you had a very close affiliation with the street up until what you just mentioned.
Definitely not. Definitely not. It was sketchy, man. Like it was, I want to say it was through a teammate who had, made a local connection with someone, like a fan.
Mm.
And it was just, he had maybe inquired about it and kind of found someone. And so I got the number. But like it was sketchy right from the hop, like the meetups, in sketchy areas. And just I remember being like feeling scared the first few times I did it, right? And just like thinking I was going to get robbed, or that, fake pills or whatever it was, right?
So that was your only concern at the time?
um in a sense, yeah, because I was already feeling like those withdrawal symptoms, right? I was getting those. So I remember the mentality of like, I gotta pick up. I need to obtain.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
The first time you felt dope sick, like, did you
Ooh.
realize?
It was in the off season after my second to last season in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I had just previously bought some Oxycontin 30s, so pretty strong medication down there. And
Like you bought some from the street?
yeah, bought some from the
So
street.
up until this point, you hadn't been dope sick, and you're already buying off the street?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Like, not, I think I'd felt it, but just sort of dismissed it as like not feeling well, or yeah,
whatever.
exactly, yeah. It wasn't. It was pretty mild, but this one hit me hard, man. Like I had finished the pills I had bought, let's say 2-3 days prior. And yeah, I was with my wife at the time, my oldest daughter's mother, and we went into a Starbucks with our child just to grab a coffee, like mid-morning. And it just like hit me like a wave. Like I started pouring sweat, but was freezing. And I just was like, I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like I think something's wrong. Like I legitimately started like panicking a little bit. It was that intense. And ended up just going back to the house, like showering, and like it was still like, tingly skin. Just it was not good. And I think I did a Google search, like as far as like what's actually going on, and then pretty quickly I discovered, that I was probably withdrawing.
How'd that feel?
Honestly, man, like it was already, I think, just those addictive tendencies. Like I was, how do I score? That was kind of, looking back, that's where my head went, and probably made a phone call pretty shortly after that. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what that looked like. So then I somehow played another full season after that. On the home front, it started to deteriorate, putting the safety of my wife and our child in jeopardy.
How so?
Uh, just raging, just not necessarily when I'm like withdrawing or like needing to find dope, but just like the effects of like I wasn't clear headed, right? And put them in unsafe situations. And so she eventually left. I didn't know what recovery was at this point, or how to look at my part, right? It was just, you abandoned me, you ended our family.
Well, and
right?
what's interesting too, is, when you're talking about the first time you realized you're dope sick, your solution was to go get drugs.
100%.
Isn't that twisted?
It's very twisted, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's important that we really shine a light on that, because that is how we think, right? Drugs weren't our problem; they were our solution.
Yes.
Right, and that there's a shining example of how we start to think that way.
I just remember how strong those feelings were, and then again, not
Mm,
I can talk about it now, but I didn't know what resentment was necessarily, but that was clearly going on when my uh, relationship with my oldest daughter's mother ended. How could you
mm,
type stuff, right? Like
mm-hmm,
no accountability, man. Like looking back on it, it was just like how could you dissolve our family, essentially was my thinking.
mm-hmm.
And then just like abusive belittling dialogue towards this person, right? Endless. And so yeah, it was messy. Like courts had to get involved. I lost parental rights to my oldest daughter for uh 3 to 4 years when I was in active addiction.
So
uh,
what?
yeah.
Hang on now. So what? Did something happen on the ice? Did something happen with the team?
Yeah, there was a little like had some injuries and just got healthy again, but couldn't get back in the lineup necessarily. Like we had a really good team, and I was just sort of waiting for an opportunity to get back in the lineup. But again, like I'm using and drinking still every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of a decision I made. It tied into what I had said before about like I thought maybe I had lost a step. I was kind of identifying with that, and then just with circumstantial stuff happening as far as not actually playing,
Mm-hmm.
like not being in the lineup, I was just like, you know what, I think it might be time.
You know, I had Rich Pilon sat in that same chair.
Awesome guy.
Yeah, yeah,
St. Louis Sask.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he said something interesting. He said that hockey was getting in the way of his using, and that's why he quit.
Dude, you know what? Like that's eye opening. Like I
Mm-hmm.
never looked at it that way, but that definitely could have been part of it. Because honestly, hung him up, uh, did what I thought I was supposed to do, like get a real job and provide for my family. So
Mm-hmm.
like lined that up right away. And like I said, within 2 months, it all came crashing down.
Yeah. Well, and then you lose your identity too. That's something else that we haven't really pinpointed. Like you mentioned, like, oh, 30 years of my life I spent doing hockey, and
Yeah.
now that's gone. Like
Yeah.
there, it sounds to me like you didn't really have any preparations in place to fill that
Zero.
part of you. So now you're floating around with no identity.
Yeah.
And what did that look like?
Yeah. That's been tough. Then that's carried on to an extent through recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, no purpose, man, right?
Yeah.
Sure, like you can fatherhood, right?
Yeah.
But
Get a job.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I had these misconceptions again that would like allow me to turn my life around, or maybe tone down the using or control it to some level, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
the job or my daughter. And that was an illusion, right? As you know, like our kids can't keep us sober, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great motivation factors, but can't keep me sober. And I genuinely thought that they could, or at least with my oldest. But those consequences were really piling up, and I essentially had burnt my life to the ground and had no purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm isolated, and that was a new experience because I was always surrounded by teammates, fans,
Mm-hmm.
uh and now I'm alone in a condo in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and can't see my family, don't
Mm-hmm.
have a family, and all my family from Canada is back home, right?
Um, Lots of suicide.
Definitely came up, man. I think I was like, too scared to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there was definitely ideations, you know, just, those thoughts of failure, and, I'm just, I didn't do it. I didn't do what I set out to do. Not that I even knew what I was setting out to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I maybe wasn't ever super goal oriented growing up. It was all about like people just like told me to do stuff. Oh, you're good at hockey. You should try to go play junior hockey. You should try to go play pro. So I just kind of like did stuff people told me.
And now no one's telling you what to do.
Exactly, man. And I
Mm.
knew I had a strong work ethic. I knew I was resilient,
Mm-hmm.
but this addiction thing was starting to kick me in the ass, and I was recognizing it now. Still not identifying as an addict alcoholic, um, and still minimal accountability, but I'm recognizing that I can't stop using, and I'm like needing drugs to get up in the morning and
Yeah.
do anything productive.
What
So
what did the money look like?
yeah, so you can get into that a bit, like just not good. I mean, and I started manipulating, family, particularly parents. And so they were here, I was there, so I was able to manipulate for money,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was, need it for my lawyer, stuff for my daughter, whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that went on for a year and a half. It's gone on well beyond that, but that first year and a half, I mean, I don't know how I survived it, honestly, because again, I was alone. I wasn't getting to see my child. The courts had taken her away, supervised visits, but I was showing up high to those. Um, it got really ugly, and I don't think I knew how to cry out for help, right? I never did. And I was still holding down that I was doing like public works in Tulsa, so like city work, missing a lot though, not super reliable,
Yeah.
needing to be high obviously at work to get through, right?
Yeah.
Picking up on the clock, like just really unmanageable,
Showing
questionable stuff, man.
showing up to the trap in a company truck, in a city truck.
100%
Yeah.
rode with picked up the dealer in company truck
Yeah.
to go pick up,
I
like,
did shit like that too.
yeah, and like no hesitation, man. It was like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like what could happen from this? Several run-ins, like passed out in company vehicle in a gas station parking lot one time, just like after using, passed out, cop knocking on the window,
Mm-hmm.
getting pulled over, a bunch of pills in the console, and just, cherries come on, just swallow them all.
Whoa.
Yeah, that happened a couple times.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and even can tell, yeah, quick story, I'm not proud of it, but like after one of those instances, and of course my insurance and plates are expired, right? Because
Yeah.
so he's writing me up a ticket, actually pulled me into the cop car for whatever reason to write up the tickets, like front seat. And so we're just talking, he's like, you sure you haven't been drinking tonight? And then I, no, I'm sober, like, so yeah, he writes the tickets, and it got lengthy, so I'd swallowed these pills and they're like starting to kick in, right? And it was probably like 250, 300 milligrams of oxy, so enough. And I can start feeling myself gonna get sick, right? Like my body's rejecting that amount.
Yeah.
And he's like really questioning me, and like finally lets me go. And like I just peeled around the corner, got out, threw up, and could see, 3 or 4 of the pills still, right? Still hadn't dissolved. And yeah, for a fact, I was taking those back on, I
Mm.
wasn't letting those go to waste.
So what was it? What was the last straw then? Like what drove you to the decision to get sober?
Yeah, I remember vividly sitting in a gas station parking lot in Tulsa, about a year and a half after I'd lost my family,
Mm-hmm.
no solution. And yeah, I called my dad, and I was just like, you know what, I think I need help. I
Mm.
can't, like, this is what's happening. They knew, right? They weren't, even from afar, like they knew I was messed up. Um, they got on the phone and got, helped me get into treatment for the first time.
Mm-hmm. What did that feel like to you to say to say that out loud?
I remember, like, yeah, there was definitely some relief there, man.
Mm.
Like that admission, to someone that you like genuinely love and care about. Um, some shame as well, no question.
Mm-hmm.
Especially to your father, like, that I didn't feel like I was living up to the son he thought he'd raised,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there was a bit of that, I remember. And yeah, like emotionally I'm feeling all this. Like I was in tears, right, on the phone, sitting in
Mm-hmm.
my car having this conversation. And they were not super familiar with how to help me necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it kind of started the treatment and detox cycle for me.
Yeah.
I did 30 days in California,
Uh-huh.
non 12 step based, because I requested that, right? I thought, just ridiculous, right? Saw God in the steps, like a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
scared me off. I don't want to do 12 step.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's find a holistic one. And yeah, it was 28 days in California, and I describe it now as just essentially like a vacation from using. Like it was, we satellite TV, we're able to keep our phones, like not your prototypical treatment facility at all.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sure, I was able to put 4 weeks together there without using. And then I just remember the detoxes were awful because I'd been using so consistently for so long, right? Like daily for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible. And like mild dose of Suboxone was really the only thing to help with those symptoms, right? I was I was not in good shape that first, 3 to 5 days, just like in bed and not participating, and it was rough. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, it was kind of like, okay, like I'm feeling okay. And little things though too, man. I remember like starting to be able to taste food again after like
Mm.
this was like 2 weeks in. 2 weeks in, I'm like, holy shit, like
You didn't even notice you didn't
didn't
taste food.
exactly
Yeah.
didn't notice, man. All of a sudden I'm tasting food again.
Mm.
And that's I didn't know that was a common thing with drug use, or particularly, opiate dependency. But all that stuff started coming back.
Mm.
Vicious insomnia though, could not
Mm.
sleep
Mm.
for the duration of the time I was there, and future treatment stints as well, like weeks with minimal to no sleep. Came back after that treatment, thought I had a action plan in place, did some intensive outpatient back in Tulsa. Maybe 4 to 6 weeks post treatment, I was able to stay clean. But I remember it was just, woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna get high. Yeah, picked up, and it was just like off to the races again, right?
Mm. Mm.
And honestly, it was like another, I want to say another 6 to 8 months. Um, Same as before, using by myself, quit that job. So I'm essentially unemployed now.
Mm.
And
How are you living?
yeah, parents, paying for an apartment. That's what it looked like. Literally paying my rent. I can't support myself. And I was just able to manipulate that. Um, and then it just kind of reached a breaking point. My parents came down, um, to see my daughter, see their granddaughter, make sure I was gonna live as well, because they knew it was getting pretty bad. That's when we had the discussion about doing some extended treatment facility. But again, I was really lucky with family, some extended family. A cousin actually found a facility in BC, the Orchard, and that's that that's what where the game started to change for me when I went out there for 3 months.
When was that?
This was 2016, summer of, so let's call it 9 years ago.
All right.
Um,
Let's take a break.
sure.
Listen to today's sponsors and we'll get back at it. Talk some recovery. Saskatoon's own Heroic Microgreens understands the value of nutrition in mental health, recovery, and coming together in challenging times to ensure everyone has access to nutritious food. And as such, we'd like to thank A1 Accounting Group for their generous contribution to our monthly food bank donation. Would you like to pitch into our monthly donation pool? Shoot me a message through the email in the show notes below. Warrior Mentality, empowering individuals to conquer their inner battles through resilience, self-discovery, and personal growth. Embrace your journey and transform struggles into strength with Warrior Mentality. To learn more, find their link in the show notes. All right, EHN Canada is Canada's leading provider of mental health and addiction services, providing evidence-based, medically assisted care with 1-year wraparound services for those suffering from substance use disorder. In Saskatchewan, their care is 100% supported by Saskatchewan Health. To learn more, find their link in the show notes below. Wellness News, Choice for Healthy Living, is a local resource that works to connect people to health and wellness-related products, services, and expert advice from industry professionals, locally allowing us to connect and engage. Check out wellnessnews.ca or skwellnesshub.ca today to learn more. If you'd like to see our content uncensored, we are now offering channel memberships. There is a lot of things we can't show you without getting restricted, so if you want the full conversation, or to check out our merch, or if you want to show us some love and buy us a coffee, all of those links are in the show notes below. Okay, so let's start talking about some recovery then, man. So you went into
Sure.
the Orchard,
Yep.
and things are different now. So what was different this time?
Yeah, honestly, man, just uh the loving, I describe it as the loving approach they presented there, um mainly like through the steps, the way they introduced the steps. uh and again, I didn't have a lot of experience with that exposure, but uh this the way they did it was they just kind of really emphasized the God of your understanding, which I just had never fully read that step or understood it, right. The God of your understanding, it's right in the words, but I always bypassed it and just saw God.
Mm-hmm. So what did a God of your understanding look like in those early
In
days, like
those,
when
yeah,
that realization came?
yeah, like again, I think it was location, right? Like we're on an island outside Vancouver. I mean, nature, prime nature experience, right? Ocean, beautiful weather. Again, it was in the summertime, so I was exposed to that. We were outside frequently,
Mm.
for small group and other recovery activities, and so I think I tied into that pretty early. The connection with other clients obviously was huge, and I worked a set of steps over that 90-day period while in
Mm.
treatment. My first set of steps, right?
The way you just described it was like God was in the things that you could see, the things that were around you. You can see nature, you can see the people that are around you, and that's what you sort of put the higher power in. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. That's what it looked like early on. It's
Mm-hmm.
changed more of late, and excuse me, we can get into that. But early on, yeah, it was. That's a great way of putting it. What I could tangibly see, right?
Mm.
A big thing though that I always like to mention, and a reason I love service work so much, taking meetings into facilities, is that is what happened when I was there. That actually instilled hope in me for the first time that I could maybe get sober.
Mm.
When these panels would come in, man, and it was frequent, like we're talking 4 or 5 times a week, they would bring in 3 or 4 people from various programs. And I just remember the way they looked, like how healthy they looked, and then the things they talked about, and I almost related more to the people with like 5 or 6 months than I did the long-term people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they talked about being in treatment recently and what they were doing now, and I was just like, wow, like maybe I can do this. I just had these preconceived notions or misconceptions, I guess, of what being an addict alcoholic looked like, right?
So it sounds to me that you had a preconceived notion about what you could and couldn't believe, as far as, like, it sounds like there was a distinction made between religion and spirituality that maybe you never considered, that you could have a belief in something other than yourself, something bigger than yourself, without having to go to a church to do it.
100%, man. And it was almost it all. I didn't touch on this, but it was part of my addiction uh early on, with the resenting the church and organized religion, and almost like I went deep with it. Like I was trying to convert Christians to atheism, like,
Mm.
and do you know what I
And what
mean?
started that?
I don't know, just like getting high and like going down the rabbit hole. You know what I mean? With that, I was drawn to it for whatever reason. I think it was just like looking back, a complete disconnect from anything outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that drugs and alcohol are a blockage to the spiritual world, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion now. And so that was clearly happening for me in deep active addiction.
Mm.
Um, and it's just crazy to look back on, because now I have a tremendous spiritual experience and connection, and it guides my life, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but it took a lot of time for me. It was, I talked about that hope from these panels. I started asking questions, and a lot of it was around like, how'd you get past the God part? And
Mm.
um you heard stuff like, well, my sponsor said, can you believe that I believe, and can you take the action of prayer, and like these kind of things, which strangely enough, I ended up hearing when I was out of treatment later, and actually getting sober and working with a sponsor. He's voiced the same things, right? Or had the same suggestions.
So what did I mean, we talk about step 8 and 9, right? You make the list. Obviously, your daughter was probably near the top of that list.
Yeah.
And if you did a complete set of steps in this treatment facility, like what did step 8 and 9 look
Yeah.
for? What did it feel like for
I'm
you?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I just remembered this now. Like in the extended program, around, like, I had maybe 10 days left, and it was my daughter's 5th birthday.
Mm.
And they actually let me fly down to Oklahoma. My dad met me there. Because again, I can't see her on my own, right?
Mm-hmm.
My dad met me there, and her mom let me be with her in my dad's presence, and we were able to spend a couple days with her.
Mm.
Uh, and I actually did the whole letter thing, did a full amends to her mother,
Face to face.
face to face.
Mm.
Wrote the letter, gave her the letter, said a genuine spiel, if you will, to her face. Very, very difficult, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I felt some freedom around it.
Mm.
I felt, for the first time, at least with her, some accountability,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how realizing that we're an asshole makes us feel better.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
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 And just yeah, almost shame. And again, I try not to let the past define me, but
Mm-hmm.
just that ignorance of not knowing these things. I always say like the steps could benefit anyone because it
Oh.
like shows you actually take a look at, your side of the street or your part, and like
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's not always just you, but you can you can take that accountability and try to right that wrong from your actions. Can't
Mm-hmm.
control other people's,
Mm-hmm.
but you can right that wrong for the things you did, and there's healing in it. There's relief in it, and I didn't know that till I found recovery.
When we talk about step 10, it's that maintenance, that spiritual maintenance.
Yep.
What did that look like for you during that time?
Yeah, it was new to me, new territory as well.
Did you take it seriously?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think that whole set of, I mean, I took the amends seriously for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wrote, did the letters to ex-wife, parents, to myself. They had to do one for yourself and like
Mm-hmm.
mail it to you. That was kind of strange, but also interesting to open it like weeks later. Um, but I will say in the same breath that they probably saved my life in a lot of ways, because I had never I'd never strung together more than a couple weeks at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm 3 months sober and have worked a set of steps, feel I have some type of spiritual connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, I just didn't fully take the suggestions, man, when I got out.
What'd that look like?
It was half-ass, like got a sponsor, didn't really call them, went
Mm-hmm.
to some meetings, uh, wasn't working steps, got in a relationship,
Mm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
very questionable stuff. Actually got in a relationship with a employee of the treatment center.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So that was, you know, just the decision making not there. Again, void filling, whatever you want to call it, replacing addictions.
So you stayed in BC?
I stayed in BC, man, and this
Okay.
is where it got ugly because I relapsed out there, 6 months later.
Yeah.
And this is a peak of the fentanyl crisis, or where it's not the peak, but where it's really starting to take shape.
Yeah.
Very accessible, very strong, a lot of ODs. And that's what, my addict mind, I want to get as close to death as possible. Um, Obviously without dying,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was my thinking, when I used.
So you consciously thinking, I want to get as close to death as possible.
Yep.
Like, what did you hope was there?
The complete escape from physical, emotional, and psychological pain.
Mm.
And the euphoria that's tied into that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think, like, honestly, from that first use and then some of the early on days of using, I never obtained that feeling again.
Mm.
Looking back, chased it for 3-4 years straight, right? A gentleman I went to treatment with had connected with him in treatment, offered me to stay at his place, and it was actually New Westminster, suburbia van.
Mm-hmm.
Really good recovery community, lots of good treatment centers, unbelievable meetings. I did attend some of them, and crazy, man, like 100 to 200 people
Wow.
meetings sometimes. Overwhelming, but like, just, you want to talk about a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, I wasn't all in. I wasn't in the middle. Yeah, and this is where it got really dangerous, man. Like, I think I shared with you in the past, like, a couple incidents where I woke up on like public bathroom floors, just could have easily not woken up, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
by myself, and no one's gonna find me. Like, I'm gone, right? If I don't wake up. And I remember that scaring me, um, more than any other, sketchy situation I'd put myself in.
Mm-hmm.
But still not enough to take a different type of action, right? I ended up back in the orchard, so like literally railing fentanyl on the ferry to the island to go back to the orchard. Parents taking me,
Mm-hmm.
so get in, drive off the ferry in the car up to the facility, and I start, it would always affect my breathing, right? My respiratory system.
Yeah.
And So that starts happening. I'm like, shortness of breath and like panicking, and like got there, and they sat me down. Obviously, thank God they have nurses and medical staff on hand, and
Mm-hmm.
Narcan.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a couple needles and Narcan on the chair. And I just remember, like, I didn't fully go unconscious, but I was drifting. And yeah, right back on the ferry, back to the hospital in van. Um, to be assessed. And I remember, dude, like feeling so low at that point because my parents had to go catch their flight. Thankfully, again, by God's grace, they didn't see the OD or the potential OD, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I was Narcan, but I don't. So now I'm in the hospital by myself, and coming off drugs again. And I just remember like the staff there not really taking like pity on me at all, and just like another junkie. I remember feel like there was no real compassion
There
there.
was no love.
No, dude. And I'm just like recognizing, like, I'm waiting for someone now to come pick me up to take me back to treatment. It was a 10-day stint, and I remember them just being like, "Gio, you almost died. Like, you need to stay longer than 10 days. I mean, you literally just almost died. Like, what is wrong with you? Don't let your ego get in the way. Like, you're gonna die." And I just was like completely convinced I was just gonna do this 10-day stint, that I knew what I needed to do and just hadn't done it yet. That was
Mm-hmm.
my thinking. Had nowhere to go really. The only place I could go now was back to Prince Albert to live with my parents. Right. I called a really good hockey buddy, another Saskatchewan guy from the south. He was still living down in Oklahoma, and he said, "Come on down, man." He's like, "I'll help you any way I can." Literally 10 days sober, out of the orchard again. I get on a plane and head down, and I remember like sitting in his backyard, like the day after I got there, and being like, telling myself like, "Man, you haven't actually even given it a real chance here." Yeah, I was able to string 3 amazing years together, man. And I was able to get back in my daughter's life legally.
Mm-hmm.
I built some amazing relationships with people, mainly in the program. Started getting involved in service, started sponsoring other men. But I can touch on the fact that, like, man, I struggled with other shit amidst that. Like, I was living dirty in a lot of ways. Like process addiction started creeping in, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like particularly sex and gambling. Those are the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm replacing. But again, justifying it because I'm sober. Talking to married women, trying to 13 step a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um not super morally sound at all. And again, justifying it because I've built up a good life now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm invincible to some level, or just it was ego at the end of the day, I think, right? At this point, about a year in, it was less than that, 6 months in, I met my youngest daughter's mom. The same pattern with all my relationships, like, just jump in, let's go, are we doing this? And
Mm-hmm.
just,
Back the truck up.
yeah, barely knew this person.
Mm-hmm.
And we did the long distance thing for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
um she was in recovery as well, and it was awesome, but I was still living dirty with these process addictions,
Mm-hmm.
and hiding it, secretive. Came home to Saskatoon to visit her, and had bought a ring.
Oh.
I was like all in with this person. I proposed to her, and celebrated my 3-year birthday all in the same week. Uh, Flew back to Oklahoma. Yeah, I woke up like 3 days after getting back there. No intentions of getting high that day. And I was loaded by noon.
Mm.
Picked up, and it was off to the races again. This person who I just proposed to, came down, tried to save me. We had got pregnant when I had been home. We found that out after the fact. And so now I'm in active addiction again, um, and have a pregnant partner, and can't quit using. Move home and still can't get sober. So I'm going in and out of recovery rooms here locally in Saskatoon, uh, and just can't get sober. And Gianna, my youngest daughter, was born. And I really think she helped me get sober that time, just like recognizing like I'm not going to be involved in this child's life if I can't get sober, right? And that's when I got involved for the first time in the local recovery community here in Saskatoon. Yeah, strung another 2 years together, built my life back up,
Mm-hmm.
doing
Mm-hmm.
the work. I always the three pillars, right? The triangle, right?
Yeah.
Recovery, fellowship, service.
With all of the things that you've learned, people say in the rooms when you relapse, is you had to go do more research. That's what they call that, more learning. And something I even thought of this morning, it's like pain is life's way of showing you there's something left to learn, right? So what was it after everything that you've learned, all the life experiences that you've had,
Mm-hmm.
even this, and most recently, it wasn't a big one that you mentioned, but what was it? What took you back out?
I, in all honesty, still hadn't found my identity like 10 years after being done playing hockey. Yes, there was some purpose in helping others in recovery. I found a purpose again in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But from an identity standpoint, um, I eventually destroyed that partnership with my youngest daughter's mother as well. Yeah, I grieved that loss for a long time, man. Did a lot of work, not just in recovery, like therapeutically, and like, got into, meditation practices. Like I was convinced this is what was holding me back. And it wasn't just longing for this person, it was the family dynamic and my identity, my role in that family unit.
Do you think that after all those years of use, that the using itself became your identity?
Wow. That's a powerful question. I mean, to some level, yeah.
Like you missed your friend?
Yeah, and like it was for so long it was the default coping strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know this can prevent me from feeling how I'm feeling,
Mm.
and I absolutely cannot feel this way anymore.
After this last relapse, is there any realizations? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, honestly, man, I've been telling people like this 7 months and change that it's been, the quality of sobriety far exceeds the multiple 3 and 2 year stints I had.
Hmm.
Just honesty levels, full surrender. I mean, I touched on those process addictions, man. Like I just step three'd that shit and turned my will and my life over entirely,
Hmm.
and not just my drinking and using. And I don't think I'd ever truly did that. I thought I needed like outside help, or like, that it was because you can't really talk about that stuff necessarily in 12-step rooms. To the extent I was dealing with it,
Mm-hmm.
I like to kind of keep it respectable and talk about drugs or alcohol in those settings, and my struggles with that and my solution for that. But yeah, for the first time, I think there's just a different surrender, and something has changed, man, spiritually. I wish I had the magic formula to tell you what I'm doing differently, but something has changed.
You just kind of said something there. You said up until this point, you turned the drinking and the using over, and that's not what the step says. The step says my will and my life,
Yeah, I know. And
and
it's outlined right there, and I just
you
didn't.
missed it.
I missed it. Just like I missed the God of your understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what that is. I mean, I consider myself a pretty literate person, right?
Yeah.
But I think just there's those preconceived notions about religion and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, just with the addiction side of it, just that's my, or with the substance abuse side of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
This is what burnt my life to the ground.
So you thought if you turned that over, that would be the fix. So
Yeah.
that's what and this time it's different. You've understood that, because I mean, you go into AA, and somewhere in the literature it says we're here to deal with the problem of alcoholism,
Yeah.
right? And that's it, really. That's what they say. But that's not really what step 3 is about. Step 3 is about turning your entire will and your life over to a higher power,
Yeah.
whatever that is, of your own understanding,
Yeah.
not just the drinking and the drugging. That's a beautiful realization, man.
Yeah.
Like, is that landing? Is that hit
It,
me? Like, holy, wow.
yeah, it's groundbreaking for sure, man. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like, uh not relief, but just motivation, maybe, to like, okay, let's ride with this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not feeling compelled to do these other things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do other things, right? I do therapy, I meditate, I am always looking for different outlets to expand my spiritual connection, because that's what I think it is. It's this internal connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? My spirit's within me. How do I tap into that source? And I still don't know what it is. I can't fully define it, but
Mm-hmm.
I know there's something going on that's helping me shape my life
Mm-hmm.
and point me in the right directions. And I kind of look at it as, if I take this appropriate amount of action that I understand to be right and turn over the rest, or seek that additional guidance, in my experience, it's always worked out.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, I'm not living dirty. I'm living honest and truthful to myself, and maybe for the first time, right? Not to get too far ahead of myself, but maybe I'm finding that identity.
Mm-hmm. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Uh, Giovanni Flamminio is what my real name. I go by Gio, but yeah, Giovanni Flamminio, and yeah, you can DM me if you ever want to talk, and uh, I'm always open to that.
Gio, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure and honor walking through your journey with you. And long may it continue. And I suppose that's it for now. Take good care, my friend.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate the time.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.